Day 2 of the Sepang Test as we continue the build-up to the MotoGP season in 2026. A warm welcome to a warm but thankfully slightly overcast Sepang International Circuit. Lewis Suddaby and Jack Appleyard with you. And as we spoke to you yesterday at this time in the midday live, headlines being made by Yamaha. Yesterday it was injury. Fabio Quartararo, as you later heard, was ruled out of the rest of the test due to a broken finger. But as we've now discovered today, Jack, it doesn't appear as if Fabio is missing out on much.
No, he hasn't missed out on anything. You might be looking at the timesheets for the first time and wondering why none of the Yamaha riders have done a single lap today. Official confirmation just a few moments ago that they are done for today. They will reassess in the morning as to whether it is Sepang Test done for Yamaha. Let me bring you up to speed with what's happened blow by blow. As you mentioned, Fabio Quartararo crashing just before lunchtime on his 8th lap of the test yesterday. He then went back out with that broken finger later on in the afternoon and stopped with a major technical issue. Overnight, the engineers here and back in Japan were trying to assess what the technical problem was, but were unable to come up with any answers to the big tech issue, and as a result, on safety grounds, decided to pull all of the Yamaha V4s this morning and not allow them to do any laps. They've been in further discussions, further talks, back in Japan and with the engineers on site, and still unable to find any answers of what potentially could be an overheating issue with the new Yamaha V4 engine. And as a result, on safety grounds, they decided to withdraw from the remainder of today, meaning that none of the Yamahas will have done any laps on day 2 of the Sepang Test, with their day 3 in serious doubt as well. Now, at the infancy of this new project, with Fabio Quartararo out injured yesterday, it has been an unmitigated disaster for Yamaha at the start of this new era, when lap times, when kilometres are so crucial, to be missing out on this valuable track time, in particular for rookie Toprak Razgatlioglu as well, who we spoke to in After the Flag yesterday and said, I need mileage, I need laps. So this could not have come at a worse time, and we'll see in the morning what happens. But for today, not a single lap done by a single Yamaha. Disaster.
Yeah, they, of course, did run for 3 days at the shakedown prior to this official test, but that is the smallest of consolations at the moment for Yamaha. Of course, the sole manufacturer in concessions rank D, which enabled them to privately test and run all their race riders at the shakedown, but they're going to get no mileage today. And of course, as you say, their participation tomorrow is in some doubt, and there'll be some frantic discussions as to what the problem is, B, what their next step is in terms of an engine to put in those Yamahas for the Buriram test, because we heard from Alex Rins yesterday that the next step in the engine from Yamaha is at least a month away.
Yeah, it's, as you say, it asks so many questions for the future of Yamaha. Where does this V4 project go from here? And right here, right now, given the fact that they're not on track, I don't think anybody has any answers. So let's see if we're able to find some answers over the next 24 hours. Fingers crossed we see them at the Buriram test, because I know that is a stretch to say at this point, but this V4 engine, if they can't find answers and they do have some serious safety doubts with it, then let's see. But it's, a far from ideal start to Yamaha.
Well, the ship is sailing much calmer at Aprilia at the moment. Marco Bezzecchi was up inside the top 6 yesterday. Session today so far has been led by Joan Mir on the Honda, but Aprilia looking in pretty good shape, and we can welcome their technical director now, Fabiano Sterlacchini, who is going to join us live here on MotoGP. We will head round to Fabiano, who is very wisely waiting in the shade for us to come and join him. Fabiano,
and with Aprilia branding in the back. He's well trained, yes. Fabiano, very well trained.
Very on brand. So, talk us through your test so far. We're at the halfway stage of this Sepang Test. How satisfied would Aprilia consider themselves with it to this point?
Yeah, good afternoon. Yeah, we are quite satisfied because we brought here several items to try to improve the bike for what we saw last year, because obviously the performance was quite good, but it's never enough. And at the end, let me say that we are following the path that we started already the last season in terms of the connection between the company, that is always something difficult in the motorsport company, between the people in the factory and the people here. I believe that we have a perfect integration in this regard, because clearly we are translating properly the problem to the guys at home, and together we are fixing the problem, bringing solutions that they are working, not 100%, but 80% of what we brought here. It's difficult to say how much, but they touch the problem.
Speaking to Marco a little bit earlier on, you'll hear that interview and After the Flag a little bit later on. Speaking about the two circuits you have to test here before the season, the Sepang circuit and Buriram, arguably two of maybe the two weakest tracks historically for Aprilia. So are you going to get perhaps a firmer idea than you would testing anywhere else about the steps you've made on the bike?
Yeah, that is a good question. For sure, looking to the result of last year, Buriram was not so bad like what we did in Sepang, because in Sepang we were in fantastic moment of the season and we had a drop in terms of performance. So clearly we struggle much more here in Sepang compared to Buriram. But obviously that is basically the work of us, the group of the people, the engineers and the technicians, to try to understand how is the right, correct recipe of a technical ingredient to have the perfect bike in any circuit, basically. So obviously what we test here, we have to reconfirm. And basically also after the beginning of the season, you can, let me say, put under discussion some item.
Obviously, no Jorge Martin. We heard from him yesterday. How much did that affect the testing plan?
Yeah, for sure, as last year. But basically our, let me say, mantra is taking a problem like an opportunity. So we are debugging a lot of things with a much better speed with the Salvadori that is super available as usual. So basically we are in somehow bringing to Marco more solution because we are more confident after the test of Salvadori and also the other rider in Trackhouse. So for sure it's not the ideal scenario, but we try to take the best.
You mentioned Trackhouse. I saw Ralph Fernandez testing some of the new rear aero that you brought today. So how much are you leaning on him to sort of build his profile in the absence of Jorge?
Yeah, for sure we saw that Trackhouse grows a lot with both rider. Apart in the middle of the season with Ogura, we had some problem in terms of confidence, but it was normal because he was a rookie. With Raul, we had a much more clear path in terms of growing during the season. And to be honest, now we are in somehow using Marco and Raul to try to develop component to spread the test or to confirm in case that we are quite confident, and then we have to start the production phase after the testing phase. So in this moment, Trackhouse is, I would say, just a half step behind, but is absolutely in line to bring ahead the development.
And with that as well, we saw that all four bikes, pretty much from the first laps, had the new aerodynamic parts on both the front and the rear. Unlike other factories that are doing some back-to-back testing, you seem pretty confident that these new aero parts are the direction forwards.
Yeah, you know, probably this is something that could be interesting. Year by year, all the company, they are developing what is really needed to increase the performance. So it's much more easy to arrive with something that is working. And to be honest, also here is another proof that we brought something that touched the problem, or better, the area where the rider, they were requiring more development, more improving. And basically all the rider, they said, okay, yes, there is a step. Now, as always in any items, you have the benefit, but you have some drawback, and you have to reassess the bike in terms of tuning, electronic, and we are in this phase in this moment.
Yeah, what was the philosophy for Aprilia in designing, building the 2026 bike? Because there's a huge regulation change coming for 2027. Your starting point was already a bike that was very strong, that won Grand Prix late last year. So are we talking about evolution or revolution for Aprilia? Because visually the bike is quite different.
Yeah. Several times I say that basically since the moment that I arrived, we try to do some super quick evolution. In this case, the regulation change is so big that you need to do the revolution. Obviously, we have some milestones that they are coming from the current project that is super competitive. But in the meantime, we have to say that in some area we have to revolve completely the concept. For example, without the radar device and completely different box dimension of the aerodynamics, the wheelie problem has to be approached in a completely different way. So clearly, you have to revolve the project.
Well, thanks very much for joining us. So far, so good from Aprilia's point of view, and we wish you well for the rest of the test.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to Fabiano Sterlacchini joining us live on MotoGP social media channels. Let's continue to sum up what we've seen so far. I guess rounding off on Aprilia. No test was going to match the difficulties they had last year, losing two riders on day one. So it was always going to be a slightly calmer ship from an Aprilia point of view. But lukewarm optimism, I guess, from their point of view.
Yeah, I think they'll be pretty happy with how things are going at the moment. Whenever you speak to anyone inside the Aprilia camp, they've got that cautious air of optimism. There's a real buzz around the place that they know there's an opportunity ahead of them in 2026, but it's very much the ethos from Massimo Rivola, from Fabiano Sterlacchini, is that feet on the ground. Rome wasn't built in a day. And yes, we can be serious competitors and contenders this year, but we have to still follow the process and tick all the boxes in the right way, which is what they're doing at the moment. The aerodynamic stuff, which they have been the leaders in MotoGP for a good number of years now. Once again, they're leading the way with a new front aero. They've been testing some rear aero parts, some of which is extremely extreme and radical, as is normally the case. We were talking to you yesterday about the bridge aero. Well, today, for a while, we've been calling it the Stegosaurus wings. Well, the Stegosaurus has sprouted yet more wings.
It looked like a game of Guess Who on the back of the Aprilia seat.
There was 8, maybe even 10 separate sort of spikes coming out of the rear seat unit. And actually, it was quite funny. The bike was coming out for the first time, and I was outside the Aprilia box getting some photos. And as Marco Bezzecchi walked up to it, he put his hand over it to stop me taking any pictures and gave me a little wink before he got on the bike. So you can tell just through small things like that there is confidence about the Aprilia squad. And although you might be looking at the timesheets and not seeing an outright unbelievable lap time, they're still now one of only 2 manufacturers to have never gotten into the 56s here, but it's a matter of time. They don't feel the need to go out and waste a soft tyre on a time attack at the moment, because they feel that they're slowly building what they think can be a World Championship winning machine.
Yeah, spoke to Marco Bezzecchi right about half an hour ago. You'll hear that, and after the flag later on this evening, he confirmed no time attack so far from Aprilia. They may well do one tomorrow, as many teams will put a soft tyre in and try and go for a lap time, but it's not a high priority for Aprilia at the moment. 2 manufacturers we've covered, Yamaha and Aprilia. We'll explore the Yamaha story further on after the flag this evening. We're live with that in just over 2 hours' time. So let's move on to the 2 manufacturers who have today set their fastest ever Sepang lap times, leading with Honda, who are leading at the moment. Joan Mir on a 156.8, the first ever 156 of Sepang by a Honda rider. Of course, not cause to get overexcited at this stage, but an important milestone still.
Yeah, absolutely. A great lap time by Joan Mir, now close to half a second quicker than he's ever been around this Malaysian circuit. I would, as you say, just sort of take a step backwards from that lap time and look at the bigger picture. Honda have done more testing at this place than any other factory, considerably. They were fast here when we were last here for the Malaysian Grand Prix with Joan Mir on the podium, so this is a good circuit for them. We expected them to be fast with the amount of data they've got, the fact that this circuit has suited them in the past as well. So we won't get carried away by that lap time, but for sure, the talk was this 26 bike is a step forward. Aleix Espargaro said, the best MotoGP bike I've ever ridden. Joan Mir agreed with him yesterday. I've just spoken with Lucio Cecchinello that said, this is the best package Honda have ever provided to us. There's huge, huge strides been taken with the new engine, in particular on acceleration, but also with top speed as well, on top of the other advances they're able to make as well. So Honda have a good 2026 package, and it's always a positive sign when on day 1 of the Sepang Test, all 4 factory bikes and all 4 independent bikes are exactly the same, with all of the new items straight away on the bike, and they just cracked on immediately. There was no back-to-back in, there's no sort of array of different parts on different bikes as people try to find their path. There is one path that is clear for Honda, with all 4 riders, both teams, working in unison, which is normally a sign that they've got things right.
They are carrying one wounded rider today, though. Diogo Moreira, as we mentioned yesterday, had a crash at turn 5. He is a little sorer, having woken up from his first MotoGP crash this morning, so he's perhaps going to limit his mileage. We'll wait and see as we go through the rest of the day and into tomorrow, having already lost a lot of mileage at the shakedown due to some technical problems. The other manufacturer to go faster here today than ever before in Sepang were KTM, only by a smidge. They're still not into the 156s. I guess looking at KTM's quartet of riders, perhaps the rider that's caught the eye so far is Maverick Vinales, who's hit the ground running, having returned from that shoulder injury at the end of last year.
Yeah, third yesterday, and Maverick is as determined, as motivated as I've ever seen him. He looks as fit as I've ever seen him. He's absolutely crucified himself in the gym over the winter months, and it's paying off as well. Maverick is going to be a dark horse this year. He was the one that allowed KTM to get to the position in the end of the year when Pedro Acosta was regularly finishing on the podium. He was the one that found the way around this time last year at the Argentinian Grand Prix in particular, was Maverick Viñales. So he's one to keep your eye on this year. He is so motivated to go out there and to become the first rider ever in Grand Prix history to win a Premier Class race with 4 different manufacturers. He, I would say, has a great chance of doing that. KTM, in previous years, we've stood here and spoken about the sporadic approach that they've had, a scattergun approach, but Aki Ayo, speaking to him early today in pit lane, said he's finally, in sort of the last 3 months of 2025, started to get a handle on things, started to understand the way of working in MotoGP, and things are so much more methodical, so much calmer down at KTM now, and they're reaping the rewards because of that. Pedro Acosta, another man who hasn't done a time attack yet, or didn't yesterday, has done one this morning, but seems pretty happy with the items that they brought. KTM, I think, which is normally something that we very rarely get to say in Sepang, because they're normally way down the timesheets and we've no idea what the bike is going to look like. It looks as though another factory that have taken a step as well. They look to be in a good place.
And finally, before we go, the world champions Ducati, who I guess are quietly just going about their work whilst headlines surround Yamaha, of course, with their issues, other manufacturers perhaps taking steps forward. Of course, there were so many questions surrounding Ducati this time last year because of the potential engine decision that they were having to make. Of course, engines now are set in stone until the change in regs. How do we think Ducati sit? Of course, Marc Marquez caught the eye with a lap time late yesterday evening, but behind the lap times, where do we think Ducati, how happy will they be at this stage?
Look, we have to precurse everything with Ducati by saying they've got Marc Marquez, they'll be okay. But Marc caught my eye today by going back to the 2024 aero for the first time since the Jerez test, when he then made the switch to the 2025 aero. He was trying the 2026 stuff yesterday. The wings are so big, will be creating so much downforce that he said it altered the balance of the bike so drastically that it's going to take some time to really work out how to maximize that new aero, because it is so drastic on the front end. But the fact that he's been playing with that, playing with the 25 that he's been used to, and then even more so going back to the 24, that caught my eye, because it felt as though Ducati is still, now nearly 2 years on, chasing their tail, trying to find a way of improving on the 24 bike, which we said throughout the entirety of last year they weren't able to do. They achieved perfection with the GP24. They tried to improve it, they couldn't. And even here, they're still going back to 2024 items to check whether that is still 2 years later the best package they can provide, which is slightly concerning for them.
Well, Alex Marquez, he also had one of each inside his boxes, a 25 and a 24 front aero. Completely trashed the 24 aero when he crashed at turn number 5. Fortunately, though, he's okay after that.
Yeah, isn't that such a GP25 crash, though? Just no feeling on the front end at the moment, where control of the front end is at its most important here. Turn 5 at Malaysia, you're going right, fast left-hander. The first time you flick it in, if you haven't got that feel, it will wash away from underneath you. It's happened to plenty of people. We're just trying to put a story together here, but it is very much a GP25 crash to have, whereas Alex normally is arguably the most comfortable around the Sepang circuit of anybody on the grid.
Last year.
Won last year, has won a sprint here the year before, has been fast. He was fastest in the Sepang Test 12 months ago. He loves this place, and I can't remember him having too many crashes here, although he did crash twice on day one of Malaysia, didn't he? So anyway, scratch that. He has had a few. But anyway, it was, still a bruising one for Alex, but the most important thing, he was okay.
Yeah, he is okay, and Christine need him to be okay, of course, because Fabiano isn't here. He's their sole rider in the test. Right, we're heading off to go into the air-conditioned media centre. We'll be back in a couple of hours for After the Flag, 5:30 local time. Myself, Jack Appleyard, and Elliot York will be with you. We'll get some words from Massimo Bartolini, the latest on Yamaha's current crisis, and we'll also be joined in the studio by Pedro Acosta. So make sure you join us, 5:30 local time, After the Flag, the full story on day 2 here in Sepang.